Welcome to my channel where we talk about how to improve science and scientific research in general. So scientists don't have to be those people with PhDs. They can be anybody who's interested in something in our physical world and wants to explore that further. So what is the problem with academic science? And that's the science that's done in universities and national laboratories and all over the world, obviously. So what is the problem? Well, there isn't just one problem, obviously, just like in anything. There are many. I'm going to talk about just one particular problem, and it's a personal problem that we run into as scientists. And that is, we oftentimes feel a bit of emptiness about our work. We think to ourselves, what is the point? What is the purpose of my work? Is anybody actually using what I'm making or what I've written in the paper? Has anybody even read my paper? These are all questions we probably ask ourselves a ton of times. So my background is, even as a young kid, I've always wanted to be a meteorologist. 8 years old, wanted to be a meteorologist. Spent my young life maybe pretending to be broadcast meteorologist. Eventually, when I got older, I was more curious in the mechanics. We had a few hurricanes come through in North Carolina, a few snowstorms, and I got really curious. So I ended up doing my undergrad in meteorology, moved on, did my PhD work, and that's where I really got excited. Had a fantastic advisor. She really helped me out a lot. And the problems really became more concrete as I got along. Of course, went through the ups and downs of any PhD, just like most people who've done PhDs do, you know. But then it became a little interesting what happened after the PhD. You start writing grants a lot more. You start thinking a lot more about the dollars and the papers. And even when you publish something that you're very proud of, you start to think to yourself, who's actually going to read this? So as you move along in your career, you find out that there's sort of an inner group, a small group of people who do similar work to you. And this is international. And as a result, your little niche becomes quite tight. And you start to think, who's actually benefiting from my work? Who's actually going to read my paper? And that comes with a little bit of emptiness. And then you start to think, well, who's being helped by my work? Is my work being used by the broader society? I've spent all this energy. I feel like there should be some fruit to that. Now, this is one of the general, I shouldn't say problems. This is just one of the features of science. It's a long-term endeavor. We can't expect things in the short term. However, we want to mitigate this empty feeling. And we do want to be societally conscious. We don't want our heads in the sand. We want to be customer conscious. I know that's a taboo in academia, but customers are those people who use your stuff. We'll call them stakeholders, customers, users. So, how can we solve this problem of emptiness? One way that we can solve it is to make something for someone. And I don't mean that in a trivial way. I mean, when you write that paper, try to attach maybe a simple toy model along with it that illustrates a point in the paper. Try to make something that would motivate people to engage with the process a little bit more. That way they're just not reading a paper, they're engaging with your idea. That's step one. Step two is when you begin to engage with those ideas in a physical program, you're writing it down, you have to start thinking to yourself, what would somebody who uses this toy model need to do? That in and of itself will bring you out of your own niche and force you to consider other people, even if they're just in academia. Let's say they're an adjacent lab. Let's say they do similar work but not quite the same. When you engage somebody with something tangible like that and you start to think about users, it changes your mindset a little bit. So I was in academia for quite a while, and I transitioned into the private sector. I'm a data scientist now in the private sector. I still consider myself a scientist because I still love research and I still engage with subjects, not in my day work, but in my evenings. I still think about convection and tropical convection and precipitation and the interaction between the surface and the atmosphere. So I'm still there. And what helped me realize what's missing from academia was having to go to the private sector. They consider a lot about the customers and the stakeholder. And they have their own pitfalls and hurdles as well in the private sector. So my plea to you is for us to bring our heads up every now and again, look around, see what users can benefit from our knowledge. That would begin the discussion. It's not going to alleviate the problem completely, but it's certainly a start. I hope that helps, and I have a few videos in this channel that try to engage on some practical ways of coding. For example, creating a dashboard for an idea that you have. That way people can interact with it through the browser. Explaining concepts from data science like neural networks. And I hope that we can start to move science forward in a different direction so it doesn't feel as stale. And so that way, when we do create something, there is a community there to use it. There is a community and a dialogue to engage with it. Beyond the long and arduous process, we can get some short-term reward beyond the papers and all the grants. And maybe we can start to engage people outside of just our academic circles. And what I mean is, we can try to motivate ourselves to, instead of doing science for other scientists only, we start to consider science for society as well as to advance the knowledge as well. So I hope that helps. Give me a thumbs up if you like it. I'm going to do a few more series on this to talk about maybe how some other practical ways that we can improve. But look around, keep your head up, and let's keep doing science.